Let's go. We're all having fun on count of three. 1, 2, 3, fun.
Hey, welcome back. Chapter 2.
All right.
Yay!
Woo!
I was really worried about starting this one when I read the title of it. It's almost threatening. It's like it's to expose you because you have to define what you're going to be and then aim at that single-mindedly. I think I said to Charlotte, the first thing I said was, "Oh shit, I don't want to do this," because we're basically exposing ourselves to ourselves when we start doing this kind of thing. So
what is the title, Jake? So everyone knows.
Imagine who you could be and then aim single-mindedly at that, which is a daunting thing because I think we often bury our heads in the sand about ourselves. So I was really worried about this. Did you guys have the same fear, or am I by myself in this?
When I look at the topic, I don't feel stressed, but I feel like, oh, that's great. You can be something you wanted to be. Like, I see potential instead of like a failure. I know someone would say, like, if you say it out loud, like, I want to do that, and you fail, and like everyone would know, and it's too obvious. But if you didn't set a clear goal, then you can't say I failed. Safer for that.
You've had good experience with this as well, right? You've done this for the last year.
Yeah.
You've been setting goals and hitting them. Are you gonna cry about it?
Right?
Yeah, she's gonna cry about it.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yay.
So I think that's why Charlotte's so optimistic. I'm not sure if the rest of us have been setting goals for a long time, and I don't know about you guys, but I've failed at a few of them. And when you highlight it to yourself, you really have to deal with it. You have to deal with those failures. I think it's the better of the two evils, but it's still painful. So I had a bit of fear going into this one. What did you guys think about it? Like, what takeaways did you get from it?
Well, I was surprised because I thought it was going to be one of these pick a target and then run at it, and this is how you run at it, and this is what happens when you don't run at it. And it was much more mythological in its breakdown of what it said, and it was more like a model, like good models to follow and why they're important, than it was almost like a personal thing that I had to apply. It was more like I get the opportunity to apply this thing because it's a good thing, as opposed to a mirror and a look at me. And I didn't find it was accusatory, which a lot of self-help book does, and they try and break it down so they can build you up. Whereas this was a much more just honest look at almost mythology and stories and what will fulfill you, rather than a personal attack. And so I was pleasantly surprised. I was worried when I read the title, but I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it's a deep rule. The way he goes into it, like you say, he goes all the way back to Mesopotamia, and explains it from that level, like the earliest civilization that we have record of and the earliest stories of deities that we have record of. So you're right, like it was not surface level self-help, which I think a lot of people think 12 Rules for Life. It sounds like a self-help book, but it's good. He sessions through all the way from ancient Mesopotamia all the way through to Harry Potter. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought I like some of his looking into mythology and archetypes, similar to his first book. The one thing that stood out for me was Aristotle's claim that the idea that we are already, when we're born, it's like we forget who we are, and our life is trying to remember everything that we lost.
Socrates.
Is it Socrates?
Yeah.
I remember that it's Socrates.
And I think that's the first time I've ever heard that idea. So the other stuff I've heard, but that for me just was like, oh, that's what I concentrated on. The idea that life is supposed to be something that you regain what you lost. And it feels like, because we're in education, you get some intrinsic qualities. You get some intrinsic things that you can't explain, but you know to be true. And then in life, you start to understand more why you do these things and what benefit it is. And maybe that's because it's the values passed on from family to family. But it feels like the older I get, the more I get an understanding of my upbringing, the culture, traditions, values, these kind of things. It's almost like we're regaining what we didn't know.
Isn't that a theme in education, that education is to draw out, right?
That's right.
So it's not just pouring in, it's actually drawing out what's already there, or drawing out an interest or an inclination, or I have a personal story in line with this, if anyone would like to hear it.
We have to.
Well, this is a bit I'll contribute. So like many years ago, my pastor's wife, I was just going to leave from Canada to England to move countries. And she called me and she said, I really feel like I need to tell you something. And I was like, okay. And she gave me this analogy. I mean, it's kind of like a simple analogy, but it ties right into this. She said, you are like the bud of a flower, and that everything you need for your life, you already contain it. It's just a matter of it unfolding and unfurling. So it was a very similar, and I always held on to that and kept it going, because I kept that with me, because I was very unclear on the specifics of really what I was supposed to do and where I was supposed to go. And I still feel quite unclear. I'm kind of just going step by step, figuring out who I am and what that process is. But that always stuck with me. It kind of gave me this confidence, because I was like, I contain, like that idea of remembering that. What's remembering?
But you already have it.
Yeah,
just
that you
regaining
contain it, and that it's just a matter of, I couldn't remember. My brain is
Reminded what you're supposed to do.
dying. But yeah, just that life is this process of unfurling and unwrapping what's already there, and kind of discovering it as you learn new things, and as you walk forward, and as you exercise that potential. So I just thought that hit me as quite relevant for me personally, because I'd had that almost specifically said to me at one point in my life. So yeah, that's my story.
I always feel that way as well with deep truths. It resonates in such a way that it was already there. Like it is like remembering. It's not with everyday facts that you learn, but it's with really deep truths. It just feels right. And for that to feel right, it does feel like there was already that within you. So I heard that idea from Russell Brand like 10 years ago. I've always thought about it, like whenever I hear something new, a lot of Peterson stuff, it always feels like remembering. It just fits rather than learning.
Yeah.
In the sense that we think of it. Yeah.
I've just got it in front of me. It says this, they speak to something we know, but do not know that we know.
Yeah.
Mm.
What is it? Is it training?
I think the way, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the way Socrates looked at it is our consciousness came into us from somewhere else. And that, like some people, I think the Jewish people believe that Sean was talking about this the other week, that your consciousness comes in to a child at a year old and it has to relearn and regain. Is that right, Sean?
The Jews, at least some Jews, because they all have different ideas, but they believe it takes a year for the soul, the heavenly soul, to transfer from heaven to earth. And so actually, when a baby's conceived, it's already been in process for 3 months. And that's why they grieve for a year, is because when you die, it takes a year for that soul to go from earth back to heaven.
Wow, didn't know that.
That's what some believe.
Wow.
Presumably that heavenly soul has knowledge intact, and that's why new information would resonate, like it's remembering rather than learning, right?
Yeah.
With deep truths anyway. So that's one potential answer to your question, Nikki. Obviously none of us know, but it's a theory. There are some studies where they took the same group of pigeons and they had them on the east and west coast of America. And they would train the West Coast pigeons to be afraid of a certain shape or color. And the East Coast pigeons when first seeing the same shape and color, would be fearful and run away from it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Collective consciousness.
So collective consciousness is one theory. Other realms and souls and consciousness is another theory. Like, obviously no one knows for sure, but this is, yeah, kind of hippy dippy stuff, but there's something odd going on for sure.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would believe that your spirit or your soul is quite a timeless thing, and that it was created a long time ago, or that it was, it's predestined by God to be that specific person for this time, but that it's a timeless thing. So it would make sense that there's kind of things already, it's already been kind of conceived and planned in a sense, and then you just have to kind of walk it out. But yeah. Like there's foreknowledge already implanted in your spirit, I would believe.
What's Peterson's angle on that, Joe? What does he believe?
Honestly, I don't hear him talk about this kind of metaphysical side of things that often. So I don't have a clear grasp on what his take on universal consciousness would be. But in this chapter specifically, he talks about the refining of stories over time, and how our ideas have developed through the retelling and imitation of stories over time. So, for example, he starts with the Tiamat, Marduk, and Apsu story from the Mesopotamians, which we could run through maybe. That's an idea, because that's where he kind of starts. So the story goes that Apsu is the father. He has Tiamat, the mother, and Apsu is order, and Tiamat is chaos. And she's like a serpentine, reptilian style figure. Anyway, they have children, other gods, and basically these gods develop over time. They add in new gods because the Mesopotamians were adding in new tribes and taking over new lands, which adds in new gods. And the new gods would fight it out. Anyway, these gods end up killing Apsu. They kill order. And Tiamat is enraged by this, and she goes after them. And she has 11 different demons that fight these lesser gods. Anyway, it ends up that they elect a god called Marduk to confront Tiamat, to confront chaos. And it's interesting to watch the evolution of gods over time, that they took on all these different qualities. So Marduk takes on like 50 different names. There's 50 ways to describe his characteristics. So over time, these stories are retold and retold, new gods are added in, and there's an archetype god which is taken from there. And some of his main features are that he has eyes all around his head so that he can perceive and see. That's an important thing for a god. And that he speaks magic words, he speaks the truth. Anyway, he goes and kills Tiamat and makes order from chaos. He makes the cosmos from her body. And he takes on the pinnacle of the hierarchy. He becomes the pinnacle. So I think through his explanation, to get back to your question, it's much more based on story and psychology, less than metaphysics. So we evolve over time, and we tell ourselves these stories over time, and that's how we have this knowledge and how we've developed.
I think my question, which you answered, was I think it comes from an evolutionary point of view. So even if these are stories and myths and all the rest, that they've evolved over time. I think that even when he talks about the lobsters, Hell Lobster, he'll come at it like this is the best idea of the bunch because this has already been played out, and this is the idea that won. And all other ideas that didn't win die because only the fittest survive.
Yeah, and that's the gods fighting each other in polytheism.
Yeah.
So they literally enact, they resemble these ideas that then actually fight it out, and the better idea wins or is incorporated into the next iteration. So
Right.
that evolutionary model which works with the world, right? Because that is the consensus. So he plays on that field. He never goes beyond into metaphysical because that's not the consensus.
Well, at least in his writings, I've seen some videos on YouTube recently where he seems to go metaphysical.
Yeah, maybe there's a shift now, but in the past books, Maps of Meaning, in his biblical series, he always attacks it from a scientific, a method that would be accepted by the modern world.
Does Peterson believe that the biblical stories are true stories or just stories? Like they're historically accurate or just stories?
So I've heard him answer that question, and his answer is normally, how do you define true? So he would say that the stories are truer than fact, and that stories have more importance often than actual historical events. So he often sidelines the reality of the story and the scientific version and goes for more that the story is even more important than those scientific facts because it tells us something more real than that.
Okay.
I've never heard him head on answer that question. Did it actually happen?
Okay.
To him, that's not important. To him, the idea playing out is more important.
I like the kind of followed on from chapter 1 towards the end of this chapter 2. He brought in the idea that order is great if you're ordering chaos. But if that order becomes stagnant and stiff and counterproductive, then chaos must be brought in again so that it can be rebuilt into a new order that's more beneficial. And he applies that personally in your own life, that actually things that you maybe fear and you have to go into the dirt for to confront, and it's not a bad thing because it develops you. Gets rid of the old order that may be stifling you. He doesn't use those words. Brings a bit of chaos because then suddenly you don't know what you are, who you are, what you're doing. And then you discover again, you draw out of yourself more of who you are and more of what you're capable of, what the potential is there. And I like that idea. It followed on quite nicely from chapter 1, I thought. Re-emphasized that.
Can I ask a question? Because Jordan Peterson actually asked this question. Who are you?
Shit.
Over to you.
There's a potential answer to your question of who you could be. You could be the hero. I think it's Ram Dass or one of those guys that always says you should be the hero of your own story. So what Peterson has done is shown you what a hero is.
Yeah.
A hero is someone that goes down into the dirt and finds the basilisk, recognizes the evil, breaks the rules, knowing that breaking the rules is a good thing. That's what a hero is. That's what Jesus does. That's what Harry Potter does. That's what the meek do, right? So the meek are the people that have the skill to use a weapon, but sheath it and don't use it. So that's what the hero is. So when you say, who could you be? What could you be? Who are you now? It should be a person on the journey to become that hero.
But can I ask you all then, do you want to be a hero? Is that something that we want to be? Do we see ourselves as heroes? Because none of us like the limelight. None of us like being center stage.
I think by hero, though, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the limelight. It's more a sequence of like conquests in your own life where you're daily trying to become a little bit better than you were yesterday, where you're facing things that you wouldn't have faced in the past. More of an internal, I mean, it might turn into a literal limelight, but it's almost more of an internal hero that you become, I would say.
Aren't heroes often in the limelight?
I'm sure there are a lot of heroes that never get mentioned or visible at all. They're just heroes. And then looking for the limelight or the fame, they're just doing what's right, even though they have the choice and the power to do what's wrong. They choose to do what's right.
From what Peterson says, I think it's quite the opposite of being in the limelight. It seems to indicate that the hero is the guy who goes into the dragon's den. He's the guy that goes into the sewer. He's the guy who faces the problem that everyone else chooses not to face. Whilst everyone wants to carry on with their facade of life, he's the guy who...
Okay, he's the guy who does it.
That's what he's talking about. He's
Yeah.
not talking about marching out of the cave. Yeah, maybe you march out of the cave with the dragon's head on your shoulder, and maybe you will get limelight for that, maybe. But that's not the point. The point is, are you going to confront the dragon or not?
You're going to go into the basilisk whether you are acknowledged or not. You're going to go and you're going to be the hero.
Yeah.
Without the faith.
If someone is lured into wanting a limelight, they will not go into the dragon.
Yeah.
Because that's not in the light.
Yeah.
That's his point.
There's actually a character in that Harry Potter book called Gilderoy Lockhart, and he is all about the limelight, and he's all about the photo opportunities, and his whole MO is to actually wipe people's memories that do the heroic thing, and then he takes the story on for himself and makes a book out of it. So that's actually a character in the Harry Potter thing, and it doesn't work out well for him. It backfires, and he loses his own memory and doesn't know who he is. And they retell him that he is a good person, and there's a story going on there.
Wow.
It's also interesting in stories. I think the limelight is a negative repercussion in a few of these stories. For example, in Lord of the Rings, he doesn't talk about this in the book, but when they go back to the Shire afterwards, they don't enjoy the limelight. It's a negative thing for them, and they end up having to leave. And that's a bigger sacrifice that they have to make in the long haul. They've been touched by evil in such a way that they can't live in the world anymore. They've sacrificed normality. They've sacrificed everything they had. But it was for a good cause, to slay a dragon or to slay a wizard.
So would you all agree then that we would all like to be heroes? Going back to the question, who are we?
Are you talking about people in general, or you're talking about the Whaleys?
I'm talking
The
about the
Whaleys.
Whaleys.
I don't think like is a good word to describe it. I don't think you would like to be a hero.
It's more of a case, someone has to kill a dragon. Okay, well, I'm going to go and kill it.
So you feel called, you feel destiny, you feel
Responsible.
responsible.
I think all of us feel a degree of responsibility, a large degree of responsibility.
Okay. Because
I think we've all had our elbows, brown elbows. We've all had things we've had to face and confront, and could have taken easier options out of.
so just back
It's not heroes in the sense that you get a plaque on a building wall, but for your own life and for the people around you, immediately around you, you have confronted some burden that you could have avoided.
Yeah.
So much easier to avoid angry people and angry situations.
Yeah.
That you want to bring,
Yeah, I think the term hero is almost off-putting to say, like, yeah, I want to be a hero. But the action and the depiction of what a hero is and what a hero does is very enticing.
Yeah.
To be observant and to see evil and to confront that and make it into order, that's so encouraging. And of course you want to do that. But I think the term hero shuts us all up a bit and makes us think, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
The term I would prefer is fulfillment. Like your life has meaning, it has value,
Yeah.
it has fruit.
Yeah.
That's a better way to look at it. But because Peterson's talking about stories, you're reading about heroes. So that's the word he uses. But
Yeah, it's the archetype. So you could use the word Messiah. Like, we don't want to be a Messiah, but we want to
follow.
embody as many of those qualities as possible.
Yeah, it's good.
Can I read a little bit from the book just to summarize what Jordan was saying in the chapter? He says, aim at something, pick the best target you can currently conceptualize, stumble toward it, Notice your errors and misconceptions along the way, face them and correct them. Get your story straight. I think he doesn't conceptualize a hero as something that is praised. I think his idea of heroic is actually the challenging stuff, the stuff that doesn't get praised. And I think it's a very accurate picture of what heroism is. Like Jesus didn't go to the cross for, you know, like he wasn't there to get a crowd up and excited and all that stuff. It wasn't for the adulation of the Pharisees and all that. So I think it's a very accurate picture of what you should be aiming at. You should be aiming at something that is worthwhile, something that's difficult. And that's why it's such a challenging chapter, because it's like aim at something and do your best to do it. It's like gets the heart of what you want to do, but you know that it's going to be hard. So it's such a difficult chapter because, yeah.
Jonas, what in your life have you done that in Peterson's definition is heroic? What have you taken aim at, even though it's difficult?
Took on his
Yeah, like I think some of the most challenging things is like parenting and marriage and it's the things that aren't seen. It's not in the public eye.
The dirty,
but
dark
they
things.
they do. There's a, like, if you don't get it right behind the scenes, everyone will notice. But it's like, you know, they say in marriage, you get out what you put in, and those kinds of things. And if you can't win those battles at home, you can't win those battles anyway. And so it's like you really do have to deal with your own dragons and deal with the dragons of someone else. And that's, I think that's some of the most challenging because it's the closest to your heart.
It's the deepest stuff.
But if you are able to find ground and win battles, and as Peterson says, slay the dragon, I don't think it ever goes away, but it's a continual action. You are able to like level up as a dragon slayer, and you're able to take on bigger things. And I think a lot of people, and this is my experience, is you try and avoid things because it's like, oh, I could never do that. But if you deal with, you like, make your bed, start with the small things. It's the action of just like getting down into the muck and casting a light to it and being conscious of it, that's gonna get you somewhere. The dragon only gets bigger the more you don't look at it. So yeah, in my life, I can't recount, hey, here's my checklist of all the dragons I've defeated, but I think it's not for everyone to see, right? Like, I know what I have to deal with, whether you see it or not. But yeah, I will say in the last 6 months, I've seen 5 marriages fall apart in front of my eyes. And so that's one thing that's unconscious about, is you gotta deal with this or things will break apart.
For me, it's, well, I very much keep it, I don't know, maybe it's a reflection of my personality, but I'm not so good at the corporate because I don't feel like I've tackled enough of myself yet. So for me, it's very much a day-to-day, step-by-step, facing what I am, who I am, where I need to grow. Because if I can't handle myself, I can't handle my children, I can't handle my marriage, I can't handle anything out there. And so, yeah, for me, it's just a daily, I start the day with surrender and I go from there. And I try to listen internally to guidance, and I go step by step. And I try to know that by the end of the day, I've done my best, and that I'm comparing to me, and I know what I face and I know what I struggle with. And I aim at that. I aim at just becoming my best self so that I can be useful to the world.
So the question was, what mountain or what dragon was that you're facing? So you're improving, you're taking step by step against what? What is it you're attacking? What are you aiming for? What are you focused
I'll
on?
answer the question for you.
Oh my shit. There's a lot of it.
I think if you guys can cast your memory back to when Esther and I first got married, we were, how old were you, Esther? 24?
21.
Well,
And you know, like if we just watched our honeymoon video and we go back to when we looked young and we were carefree and stuff, and your mind goes back to how immature we both were. And there were things that we had to deal with in our marriage because we were so like, we were both stunted and we had, you know, we just didn't understand, you know, a lot about ourselves, but also about how things worked. And to Esther's credit, she's put, like, you want to talk about heroic, she's put her head down regardless of where we started, and she's challenged herself, and she's got this mentality of this growth thing. And it's not easy, but it's a reflection of like she set up a website and she's doing her art every single day. She spends at least an hour or two drawing and just getting her just practicing and doing something that makes her come alive, but it's challenging, and learning how to do all the stuff that goes around that, as well as everything else. But it's always interesting to look at what you used to be. It's always interesting to go look at the old photos and the old Facebook posts and the old letters that you used to write to each other and see how far you've come. Because if you look just at the future and like, oh, I need to do this, I'm getting a bit, you know, I'm getting gray in the beard and I haven't done this and this and this. It's a healthy thing also to look in the past and go, you know, we've come a long way.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to be really personal, my personal dragons are things often like shame or, you know, feeling guilty, or because like a stupid example. So this morning at the breakfast table, Seamus is trying to share with me something about his dreams or
getting to all our family.
No, this is the kind of thing.
Cool for your mental health.
We're having a chat over the breakfast table about Seamus had a dream the night before and he's saying this and that. And Judah is being Judah and I mean, people just have no idea. Anyways. And I'm immediately distracted telling him like, sit down. Cause I've got it in my head, like, I've got to be consistent. I've got to train him. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. On top of the fact that I myself am very distractible. I'm just like him in many ways. That's where he gets it from. So there's this constant thing with me, like I'm trying to get it right and do it right and be right and do things that a lot of it, I actually have very little concept of myself. So it's always this internal battle against me. And then Seamus turns around and goes like, why can't you just listen to me? Like, why do you always get distracted and you do that? You know, like it's this, and I immediately just feel ashamed because I know, like, I get emotional about this because it's hard. I know how hard I'm trying and how just like this stupid internal stuff that I battle daily, all day, all the time, sometimes better than others. But anyways, and so I'll just feel really ashamed and I'll just want to explain like, you know, I'm trying, but I fail at it all the time. So for me, it's often really internal and it's often very personal. So I'm still very much at square one. I mean, I'm better, but I'm still very much like, it's an internal dragon for me. So yeah, that's me.
I think it's an internal dragon for everyone.
Yeah.
I think you're only limited by yourself.
Yeah. But I think some people are better at being out there. I don't know.
But you're still only limited by yourself.
Yeah. I'm just saying for me, it's very like day to day, often very personal. It's nothing like crazy.
Is that everyone else's experience that you think
That's the quote from Solzhenitsyn, is that the line between good and evil is drawn down every man's heart. Yeah. So it is a battle from within always. Yeah. I would completely agree with that.
Now, Essie, you say that you battle with that. I battle with thoughts of murder. I do. I battle with thoughts of murder sometimes. I could murder.
We've got evidence on YouTube now, Dad, if you go.
Don't take that life insurance policy out there.
Don't eat any of those mushrooms that she keeps offering.
So, Jack,
You know-
you got a good example about facing a dragon, facing a big heavy boulder.
Who?
You.
What?
You're losing it.
I don't know what you're referring to, but
There's a shot.
oh, I was going to go more important than that. I stopped lying.
I was giving you a softball.
No, yeah, we could talk about that. I would say my biggest dragon that I faced was lying or deceit. For the first 25 years of my life, I lied about everything to get out of every situation. And I'd bury my head in the sand and I would avoid things. I wouldn't talk to people on the phone. Complete mess. Like that dragon got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then a few events happened. We had big falling out, talks with Nikki, with Sean. You guys both took me to task, outsourced my sanity. And one day I just decided no more. And then, yeah, that's a dragon I fought daily, like Esther's talking about, for a while. But since then, I think I've been consistently honest about everything I know to be true, or I think is true at least. I'll never purposefully lie anymore. That was a huge dragon for me.
What made you say today is the day, no more? What was it?
It was the evidence of how living like that affects your life.
Okay.
I was losing relationship with family. I was doing things I didn't want to do. Like I've often said, I said to Nikki a few times, just tell them I'm dead. I would rather be seen as dead than have to deal with this anymore. So when your life's in that state, it's a good time to change. Yeah. But there's power in fighting that specific dragon or any dragon in that. I sorted out my room in doing that. I organized my life in doing that. I made that into order so that when I met Charlotte, our first 3 months or 6 months was, okay, now you got to sort out your room. So she had a myriad of issues, and we all do, we still do. But the big ones, that's what we went in for the kill straight away. And we often said, like, either let's just break up or this has to change.
Yeah.
So when Charlotte's talking about her last year of how she's evolved and stuff, a lot of aimless dragons that just going along with the flow and not having a purpose and not having an aim, being not meek but useless. Those are the dragons she's been fighting, and she's gonna cry about it as well.
I just want to say that's my dragon. I think before, I don't know who I am. I'm still trying to figure out. But when I first met Jaden, that's the dragon I have to fight. Like, I wasn't aware that that was my dragon before, so that I just let it be there. But then meeting him makes me realize that you've got to kill that dragon, and that's going to be a big issue. Even we're not together, that problem is still going to affect my life, and I'll be wasting a lot of time doing a lot of pointless shit. So I think that's where I have to kill that dragon to really put myself together and think about my values. What do I want and who I want to be and who I am. So speaking back to that point, I remember when Jaden first introduced Jordan Peterson to me, that's the one thing that I really, really like. It's the psychology of flow. So I have it down here as well, because when I first read this title, I really like it because I can relate to psychology of flow immediately. You got to be honest with yourself. Where are you at and where you want to go? And then it doesn't matter how, you are able to find a way to navigate towards that point. But you've got to be really honest with who you are now and what do you really want to be? If that target is wrong, or you're lying to yourself, like if I tell myself I want to be a millionaire, but I actually don't want to, then it's going to be another level of wasting your time, because you're focusing on something that is wrong. It's also very painful. So
Yeah,
I
when
think,
you don't set up that aim yourself and you just inherit it or you take it from someone else, it's a terrible thing to navigate towards, obviously. So setting up that aim was a big thing for you. And I think that's primarily a knock-on effect from me tackling my dragon. And that's a knock-on effect from you guys talking into my life and telling me to do that. So these things aren't just one-offs. Like Seamus was saying, you build on that daily. You conquering something and making it into order is good for not just yourself, but your family. And if it's good for your family, it's good for the community.
No.
Mom and Dad, what dragons, mountains have you faced?
I can tell you mum's and I can tell you mine. Well, there's been several, but big ones, big dragons, fiery ones with big wings and stuff and sharp.
Don't look at me.
I think for mum was anger issues when she was young and first married, and she dealt with that. Took her about 6 months, but she dealt with that very well. She seems like she can be angry, but she's cool inside. Before, when she seemed she was angry, she was hot inside, and it was dangerous. For me, I think my dragon is I'm complacent and lazy, and I like my comfort. So
Lazy.
I'm talking. When and it's when I look back on my life, I've had quite an adventure. I've done things that a comfort person would not choose to do. So, you know, it was like in a grave, in a sense. It's just in a rut, which is a grave with both ends. I'm that kind of person. I'll just stick with it and just kind of waft along. But I've climbed out of that trench every now and again and done some, I think, looking back, brave things or stupid things, which has improved my life. Maybe not improved me, but it's certainly developed me. Struggle has developed me from just being a lazy slob. Now I'm an intelligent lazy slob. And an experienced lazy slob.
Can I just, would any of you call your father lazy?
No, the opposite.
He was fishing for a compliment. Cheap tactic. I think one of the big dragons you faced, Dad, was shifting the whole family to England, working 3 jobs, working through cancer, working through gallbladder issues, and you improved all of our lives so much.
Yeah.
And there was a big dragon. You had to fight very hard for that. Nana died in that time. Your wife was going crazy in that time.
Yeah.
You almost lost it, but you saying it didn't improve you improved us. You got us all educated, some of us 2 degrees. You fought a big dragon on behalf of all of us.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's only recently I've not seen that move as a failure. I thought it was a complete failure in many ways. But I don't think we'd be where we are now without that sewer. You know what I mean? Without that.
It was a sewer, yeah.
And so much benefit has come from it. And we're really fortunate in the time we're living right now. It doesn't mean more chaos might not come along and things might crumble, but there's another experience to build on.
Now, Dragon Slayer.
Bonnie, you haven't told us your dragon.
She's the dragon.
Sure. Myself. As you know.
You what?
What? I've had to fight insecurity in my life, and that's been a huge dragon. Up until a year ago, or 2 years ago, like I actually really faced it. I looked at it, and had to dig deep and realize, or ask the question, why? Where did this come from? Why? And really face it, because I came to a crossroads and it was all or nothing.
I think the crossroads came to you.
Sean brought it to me and he said, choose. And so I had no choice, although I did have a choice, but I did choose my marriage over nothing. And I had to face it. And I think when I look back now and certain situations happen, and I catch myself thinking, if this was me 2 years ago, I would have reacted completely differently. And I almost stand back and go, I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. Hero. Yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone's crying tonight. So yeah, I'll stop there.
What, specifically about that, Buns, for years you knew that was there, but you didn't face it. Why?
Too scared. So I thought dealing with it was bigger than holding on to it or avoiding it. I always thought facing it would be terrifying. But then coming through it, I realized dealing with the crap in your life it's powerful, because it empowers you and it makes you a better person. So I whenever I go into a situation or something happens, I try to look back or stand back and go, I don't want to be that person that person is making me feel, because I don't. So I'm always trying to assess to my best ability situations, so I'm not just getting caught off guard or being someone who is not dealing with their stuff, because you see it and it's terrible. And then I look back to how I used to be, and I was terrible, like absolutely terrible.
Because of insecurity made you terrible?
I think that was the root of it, and it worked its way out in different situations. So like even Jaden, you're saying you didn't like answering the phone. I hate answering the phone. Like I really just hate it. And I don't think that's insecurity. Maybe it is, but I think I feel like I don't know what to say, or I feel like if I don't know it all, or the situation isn't planned out, or I'm not equipped, then I don't know what I'm going to do. Like that just freaks me out.
And it's not that itself, it's the fact that you feel exposed.
Yes.
You feel like...
Yeah, it comes back to me, like I'm an idiot, I'm a failure, which I guess is insecurity.
Yeah.
I'm not secure in who I am.
Interesting.
Every interaction has that possibility to highlight your failures as well. So whether it be a phone call or a new conversation, you just hide your head in the sand and avoid it.
Yeah.
Because there's potential for pain there.
Yeah.
And what we don't realize in that state is there's potential for growth there, not
That's
just for
right.
yourself, but for everyone else.
Yeah.
And you kick yourself because there's so many situations I've avoided, but inside of me, I want that. I want to attack it. I want to grow, but I've just been too scared.
Yeah.
So it's coming back to that thing someone said about being honest and open. And that's what I'm trying to learn to be. Just be real, be open, honest. And I've been so scared about that because like, well, what are people going to think if I'm so honest? But I've got to a point where I'm like, I don't care, because honesty and truth is the only thing that's going to help anything, by being truthful.
Yeah, it's good.
And it's okay if people don't like you. It's okay if they reject you. And I've been so scared of rejection. But now it's like, it's okay, because that's part of life. That's normal.
It is scary. It is a dragon, and it can kill you.
Yeah.
Not confronting it is worse than the potential for dying. You're just dying slowly. It's like not having an aim or a direction is not better than having a direction and failing on the way there.
Yeah.
Either way, you're going to die. It's just you might actually get somewhere before you do.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we all have to go through huge shifts and changes when we first get married. And I mean, I came out of a background that had a lot of anger in my home. And that's what I learned. That's what I knew. And it was only when Dad stuck his finger in my face and said, that anger better go. Because if it doesn't, this marriage is not going to last.
Mm.
And he's not super confrontational. But that day, I knew that our marriage was finished if I didn't deal with it.
Mm.
So yeah, that was a biggie. It was 9 months actually.
9 months.
9 months.
You conceived lack of anger.
I remember something happening one day, and I looked at this idiot, not you. I looked at this idiot, and I didn't feel the anger that I was used to, because I wasn't looking at it from the perspective that I had been. So it was a real renewal of the mind without even realizing that it had taken place and the shift had taken place.
You worked hard at killing that
I
dragon.
worked very hard. I was in the Word the whole time. I was counting and I was doing all the things to get through it, yeah. But I think my other dragon, which I've not succeeded in, is my weight. I haven't succeeded in that. It's a big dragon now.
It is slow moving. So.
Big dragon. I hate being fat because in my mind I'm slim, and in my ability and all the things that I want to do, I'm slim.
That's the potential.
And that is the potential. And when we don't deal with those things, we die. These two have gone. Oh,
You're light on intelligence, but wait, I like it.
That's good. Hear that laughter.
so can I ask the last question if we're closing?
Yes.
In the end, it says choose who you are. No, choose what you want and go for that. And
Single-minded.
single-mindedly, go blah blah blah, and go for that. Have all of us got something that we've chosen or we want to aim at?
Nothing, kind of, because I'm kind of doing what I want right now. Yeah. There are a couple of things which maybe the next chapter will bring out that I've thought about recently that I should be doing, but don't particularly want to. It's not dragon stuff, it's just stuff that I should do for others, but I don't really want to. So I'm busy doing other things for others.
Yeah, I don't think things have to be these big giants that we're talking about and these big dragons that we're talking about. They can be smaller issues that we want to aim at, and they could have, like we said, larger consequences in the long run. You take on a little bit of chaos and make it into order, that's momentum that's building. So I think a small thing like that is good. I wouldn't mind, we're doing a lot of jiu-jitsu at the moment and weight training. I wouldn't mind losing like 10 kgs. Thinking you're talking about weight, because it's detrimental. I don't care that much about the look or anything, but it's detrimental to working out. It makes my joints a bit more sore. So it's a small thing. I mean, we've all slayed bigger dragons than that. Charlotte slayed bigger dragons than accounting, but it's something we can do by the end of this thing. I wouldn't mind setting that as a target.
I'll join you, Jaden.
Yeah? How much you got to lose?
I'm going to
10.
start with 10.
And hold on, Shay.
All water. It's just water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit less than a kg a week. That seems achievable if we aim single-mindedly at that. I think we can do it.
What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I need to lose more than 10 kgs.
I'm not talking about weight, I'm talking about aim.
Well, what I was impressed about the chapter wasn't, and that was my expectation. It wasn't about I don't think, goal setting.
Yeah.
Although it was focused on something and aim single
Minded.
Yeah, stumble
It's
towards
more
it.
about who you want to be.
Yeah.
It's more about a character thing and the end of your life thing than the next 6 month thing. And so I thought it was going to be, I was a bit like, edgy on it. Because I've tried to do those things before and it just doesn't always work. Well, most of the time it doesn't work. But it was more about a content of your character. And that I really liked. So I'm all for goal setting, set the goals, let's try it. I've got a goal already in place. I want to lose 22 kgs. I've got a reward in place as well. And I've been fairly consistent, although I haven't been incredibly successful. But this was deeper than that. So that's why I really loved this chapter. I really enjoyed the archetypical, for me, obviously, Jesus is the top of the heap, although you can learn stuff from other people. But it was more about striving for that thing, aiming for that thing.
I agree. I do think some of these things, although they're a task and they're small, they do feed into a bigger idea of when you look at what you could be, what does that consist of? And it's multiple facets. Charlotte looks at herself in the future as successful. That's a much bigger idea than a good accountant.
Yeah.
But a successful businesswoman knows about accounting. So it's one small step on the way. It's stumbling forward towards something. I agree with you that this is much bigger than that. It's not a self-help thing. That's why I wasn't even going to bring up the idea of challenging ourselves to be better. But if I look at myself successfully in the future, what does that look like? For me, exercise is becoming more and more important. And to be able to do that, I think I need to be lighter. So why not just jump on board and do something?
Yeah.
I aim in the next year, I'm going to give myself a year, is to hand over my job, or I don't know, a part of it, to give myself more time to do the other things that I'm not getting time to do. So look at Sean shaking his head like it's never going to happen.
That's a big dragon, and I don't think you want to slay that dragon.
I love my job. I love my job. But I do need to do some other things as
But
well.
I don't think you want to kill the dragon.
I don't want to kill it.
You want to tame it slightly.
Make friends with it.
Okay.
I guarantee, unless you decide to kill that dragon, this time next year, you'll be in the same position. Unless you make that decision and you aim single-mindedly at it, you won't be there.
I've put some things in place. I have already put some things in place. So, yeah, that's because, as I was saying to Jaden today, you know, this whole thing of losing weight, for example, I have to have more time to prepare the food that I need to eat and not be just going to whatever it is. Because my whole life is my job right now, and I need to have more time to order all those other things in my life. But when I look at, you know, because somebody said to me today, well, what is your major thing? And I thought, my thing is my family. And I think that's what I'm tying up with my job. It's not so much the job, it's that I know that I'm doing my best because of my family. So that only happened today. And I think if I was in any other company, in any other job, I would have started to move out already, wouldn't I? It's because of you lot that I'm still here as much as I am. Your fault. No, it's because that's my heart. That's my priority. It's my value. Yeah. And I'm not apologetic for that either. And that's why I love it. So yeah, it is something I need to work at. It is a dragon for me.
Question for you. So because family is your thing and that's why you want to keep your job, but at the same time, because you don't have enough time, there is a conflict because then you can't do your thing. Like your hobby and other stuff that you love, would you see yourself quitting this job as selfish?
Oh, good question.
Do I see the job as being selfish?
No.
Or quitting the job?
Oh,
Oh, I see. Maybe. Maybe.
you would see it as selfish if she left gaps that needed to be filled. I think.
Maybe it's not selfish. I don't want to be a burden on anybody else. I don't want to have any of you pick up things that I can do.
You want to be
I don't
helpful.
want that on you guys.
Mm.
I also don't think anyone else can look after you like I can. No one will care for the running and the finance and making sure everything's right and not spent and squandered like I would.
I'm sure there's someone out
Yeah, is that true?
So what you're saying, Mom, is you're the dragon that needs to be slain.
there. She's her own dragon.
Yeah. And maybe that's very arrogant of me. Maybe that is very arrogant of me.
No, it's a very common trait with people who feel responsible and they've carried a lot of weight and they've carried things forward. They've had a very valuable position. It's very tough for people to let go. It's a classic thing.
Hmm.
It's a responsible thing. That's the thing.
Cool. Well done. So we'll be back for chapter 3 next week.
What's
Excited for chapter
three?
3.
What is chapter 3?
I'm not
What
looking
are you
for
talking to?
Dragons.
Let's do a Chinese bye-bye.
Chapter 3 is going to be do not hide unwanted things in the fog. So the one Keith is very worried about.
Yeah.
Good. Maybe Keith will
Lead.
head up next podcast.
Our Dragon Slayer is going to head up next week.
Yay!
All right.
Good night.
Bye bye.
GG.
Bye.
something.
See you next time.